hi again, and thank you for joining the Dean's Fellowship Program information session. So yeah, we are going to spend 1 hour together, right? So it's 8 p.m. in Pakistan, so until 9 p.m. in Pakistan. And we are going to structure it in two parts. So first, I'm going to introduce the program, right? So my name is Colin Ferro, and I'm the director of the program. I will briefly introduce it for 10 minutes so that we have the same level of understanding. And I have with me Essen Mashoud, who is a Dean's Fellow. If you can introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
You are.
Nice to see everybody, and I think people are still rolling in, but we can start. It's so nice to meet all of you. I'm a first year Dean's Fellow presently, so this is my second semester at Habib, and yeah, I'll be mostly assisting in the Q&A session. And of course, as always, if you have any other queries, even after the session, please feel free to reach out to me via email or LinkedIn.
Yeah, thank you, Essen. So yeah, that's going to be the second part and the most extended part of our session, which will be a Q&A session, right? So yeah, Essen and me will answer questions depending on who is the recipient, the audience of that question. So typically, if you have questions that relate to the Dean's Fellow experience, right? Of course, Essen is your guy, right? And then for I guess more administrative questions or questions that relate to the admission process, then I will probably be the one to take them up. And for this, we'll reiterate those indications at the start of the Q&A part. But yeah, you'll be invited to ask your questions via the Q&A feature that you can see on the webinar panel, right? So there is a Q&A feature, so you can plug in, type in your questions, and we'll take them up as they come. So yeah, that's what we are gonna do tonight, this morning, this afternoon, depending on wherever on this earth you are. So yes, let's get started first with a short introduction to the Dean's Fellow Program. Most of the stuff that I might be about to say, right, might be stuff that you're already aware, right? Because I guess you already did your research about the Dean's Fellow Program. But yeah, just to make everyone on the same page and also to emphasize a few important points. So I'm going to share my screen. Um, so what is the Dean's Fellow Program? In short, it's a unique program. We think it's a pretty unique offering in the context of Pakistani academia for scholars, right? People interested in academia, in research, scholars who are young, right? You are all young here. And scholars who have a lot of promise, right? And especially promise to PhD placement, right? So we're catered to masters, young, recent master's degree holders who are motivated to gain the tools that will help them place into a PhD program at the completion of the fellowship, right? So in 2-3 years. That's pretty much the vision and mission of the program. So no, yeah, let's with that being said, let's try to locate it in the broader context, in the broader ecology of Habib University, right? So Habib University has this ambition to redefine undergraduate education in the context of Pakistan, right? By achieving both providing a rich and high quality intellectual experience to the students, and also, very importantly, in our context, in which only 10% of a generation is able to access higher education, um, um, Habib University has a meritocratic and needs-blind admissions model, right? So we want every capable student who is interested in the liberal arts education to be able to join us, right? So that's going to be something important in your, especially in the teaching part of your fellowship, that you'll teach across the Pakistani social spectrum in terms of social class, right? So those are a few important points so that we emphasize the distinctiveness of Habib, right? And another thing that is unique about Habib, it's its liberal core, right? As a liberal arts institution, right? By which we want students to get a critical a critical approach to reality, right? To our times via yeah, the humanities, the arts, and the natural and the social sciences, right? And yeah, this is achieved through like several courses that fit into blocks or what we call in fancy terms at Habib forms of thought, right? Which includes yeah, historical and social thought, philosophical thought, formal reasoning, right? Language and expression, creative practice, quantitative reasoning, and also natural scientific method and analysis. And incidentally, Dean's Fellows are expected to contribute to this intellectual, yeah, intellectual character of Habib, both in their teaching, right? So by contributing to courses in the liberal core, and also by their research, right? Okay. So with that being said, there is also a lot of emphasis on contextual relevance, right? So we emphasize contextual research and contextual learning, right? So research that is useful to address the challenges that Pakistan is facing, right? Um, Habib also has a lot of emphasis on pedagogy, right? It's in the grand scheme of things, you can understand it as a teaching-centric, as a teaching-focused university, right? Meaning that most of the intellectual activity focuses on teaching. This might sound paradoxical in the context of the Dean's Fellow program, which emphasizes research, because that's research that gets you into a PhD program. But this is something that you should keep in mind, that Habib places an emphasis on high quality teaching, right? And on and especially on the what you would call the scholar-teacher model, right? By which your scholarship, your research feeds into your teaching and vice versa, right? So yeah, you will be provided with an extensive onboarding on teaching, right, to make sure that you're able to teach the courses that you're assigned. Um, but then your approach should be, yeah, how much does that teaching help you inform your scholarship, right? Help you, yeah, be on top of the literature and the concerns in your field, because yeah, there is sometimes the proverb, right, that we actually don't know things until we teach it, right? Teaching something, teaching a subject matter, help us understand it in sharper and clearer ways, right? So that is the hope that we have for the Dean's Fellows in the context of Habib's emphasis on pedagogy, right? Um, Another thing that we want to emphasize that comes in handy, right, for the Dean's Fellows is the global partnerships that Habib has established with a few global universities, especially in the US, but also in Europe, right? So we have yeah, established institutional partnership with those institutions, which especially include exchanges of faculty, right? So we frequently have faculty from those universities coming to campus, right? And typically we invite them to give workshops or talks to the Dean's Fellows, and that's also an opportunity to network, right? And yeah, importantly, Habib actually doesn't cover anything across discipline, right? So those are the academics programs that we offer, right? Meaning that deans or dean's fellow should be able to integrate themselves into those programs, right? So we have computer science, electrical engineering, computer engineering in the School of Science and Engineering, and in the School of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, Communication and Design, Comparative Humanities, and Social Development and Policy, right? So this is pretty broad, and yeah, it does cover the liberal arts and sciences in the classical sense. But here, for example, you will see that typically we let's say we typically don't can't admit in some ways, right? For example, people who work in management or in business or in finance, because we don't offer that field, right? So in terms of thinking about your eligibility for the program, right? You have to think whether your scholarship, your research fit into those disciplines, right? So those are the majors, right? So student can graduate in those majors. And within, we also offer minors, whereas the majors tend to be interdisciplinary, right? Which is in line with the liberal arts and sciences. Minors tend to be discipline centric, right? So we have bioscience, communication, complete design, history, math, philosophy, physics, religious studies, and sensation music, right? those are the minors that are offered by the various programs. Okay. No, right. With that being contextualized, let's talk a little bit more about the Dean's Fellow program itself. So yeah, we're here too. We envision supporting promising young academics via several things. So the first component is it's a fellowship, right? It is not an employment contract per se, right? So you don't have the status of a faculty, you have the status of a fellow, right? A fellow that has a fellowship. At the same time, it's a full-time commitment, right? There is also the proverb in academia that it takes a village to raise a grad student, right? You can use the same proverb for Dean's Fellows, right? We take very seriously the communal integration of Dean's Fellows, right? Everybody, all stakeholders in the university, faculty, student, staff have a very good understanding of the position of the Dean's Fellows, right? And yeah, we are aware that those are yeah, promising young folks who have a laser focus, which is placing into a PhD program, right? So to achieve that hope, it is a full-time, on-site, on-campus opportunity, right? The term is 3 years, and here I would specify up to 3 years, right? Meaning, yeah, we give you up to 3 years to do what you need to do to place into a PhD program. But let's say if, yeah, actually, hopefully you're able to secure an offer before that. So let's say in your first year or in your second year, this is also possible, right? So, I mean, you can't leave in the middle of the semester, of course, because you also have students to take care of, right? But you can leave at the end of any semester as long as you get an admission offer, right? So yeah, you're not bound to 3 years. You're offered up to 3 years, right? Um, yes. So importantly, we also place emphasis on providing you with opportunities to conduct and develop research, because once again, it's research that gets you into a PhD program. And here, this is both in terms of human resources, right? Like you have the availability of faculty to guide you in designing your research project, but also in very crude material terms, in terms of money, right? You'll be eligible to very generous, both by local and international standards, very generous research grants that will allow you to design and execute any research that might be needed in your field, right? Yes, so as I mentioned, you will work with senior faculty mentors, right? Who will be the primary go-to person for yeah, not only advice in designing and conducting your research, but also advice on PhD placement, right? Which terminal degree programs to apply to, right? Also, yes, I mean, one of the reasons why it's a full-time commitment that is also on site is that you will have teaching obligations, right? Um, in a way that is relevant to your scholarly interests, and importantly, your teaching load is much lower than the teaching load you would have if you were hired as a lecturer at a Pakistani university, right? So most universities give lecturers, I mean, people in the same life situation as you, right? So recent young master's degree holders, the typical load for a lecturer is anywhere from 6 to 8 courses a semester, right? For example, yeah, lecturers at Habib, because we do have lecturers, teach 6 courses a year, right? And in other universities, that can rise to 8 courses a year, right? As a Dean's Fellow, since we do want you to focus on developing your scholarly profile, right? We give you a reduced load that is 4 courses a year, right? Which does allow you to be integrated into academia and into the culture of Habib, right, as a teaching focus institution, but also gives you the necessary time and space to develop yourself as a scholar, right? And yeah, similarly, as I mentioned, right, you'll have access to research and travel grant. And last but not least, you will be awarded a fellowship stipend, right? A monthly stipend that is competitive for the Pakistani job market, right? So it's a competitive stipend that matches the let's say the salary or the wages that you can earn in the private sector in Pakistan, right? Because the thing is that we want you to be also materially comfortable, right? So that your energy is fully focused on your goal. All right. So in terms of your development, right? Since yeah, Habib takes seriously our mission, right? Which is raising you into placing, right? So you will have a professional development plan that includes onboarding, of course, right? Then throughout your fellowship of professionalization workshops, right, on all the aspects that you need to be comfortable with. Then yes, as I also mentioned before, Habib has a global network, right? So every time there is somebody visiting, we plug the Dean's Fellows in, right? We make sure that you have exclusive interactions with them, right? And also, yeah, related to the funding part, you have access to grants to develop your research and attend conferences in your field. Okay. So you will work with a faculty mentor, and that mentor is, pardon me, as I mentioned, the primary go-to person at Habib, right? So mentors have responsibilities, right? Which is having regular meetings with you, providing the necessary mentoring and support to identify and prepare application files, right? And also, yeah, supporting you in developing your research ID. In terms of teaching, right? So as I mentioned, you typically teach 4 courses a year. In the context of Habib, that typically looks like a combination of the courses in our liberal core, right? Then core courses within majors, within programs, right? So let's say in computer science, programming fundamentals, right? And also, you also have the opportunity whenever you're ready, right? So typically in the second year of your fellowship, you also have opportunities to develop your elective courses, right? So typically a Dean's Fellow develops one let's say very polished elective that cater to their specific area of interest, right? So typically, let's say the field, right, the disciplinary subfield that correspond to what your research is about. So yeah, that's another way to be on top of the literature and to let's say to cast a new light on what is your interest. And yeah, right. You're provided with support in your teaching, right? Because we understand that most of you don't have prior teaching experience, but we will help you getting on board, right? Not only via the onboarding program, but also by the fact that most syllabi, all syllabi actually, all syllabi except the electives are provided to you, right? You can still make tweaks as you like, but you don't have to design courses from scratch. Those are pretty established courses at this point, right? And Habib also emphasizes in its pedagogy co-taught courses, right? So yeah, I believe over the past year, most Dean's Fellows have at least co-taught a course with somebody else, right? Which is nice, right? And yeah, interdisciplinary courses, right, in the context of the liberal arts are also encouraged. Okay, so in terms of yeah, the nitty-gritty part, right? Pardon me. So your fellowship stipend, right? So what? Let's call it your paycheck, right? What will be deposited in your account at the end of each month. So yeah, you will have a base stipend, right? Your health insurance is also covered, right, for self and dependence. This is not something that you'll have to be concerned about. And also, yeah, Habib also has a subscription to a group life insurance, which you also have access to, right? If you're a Pakistani citizen. Here, yeah, those are our current Dean's Fellows, right? So yeah, they cast a wide net across programs, and all their profiles are public. So you're welcome to contact them if, for example, you have specific questions that relate to their area of expertise, right? And they can also talk about their experience. Here, yeah, those are our recent placements, and we are very proud, right? We have our Dean's Fellow Abdullah Zafar, who has placed into a PhD program in computer science at University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. And yeah, our Dean's Fellow Maso Gitschki, who has applied, who has I mean, not only she has applied, but she has also been admitted to the PhD program in sociology at the University of Virginia, right? So those are examples of recent placements that we are very proud of. In terms of the application process, which yeah, you're all thinking about at this point. So first things first, you have to apply, right? This is important. You have to apply via the online portal, right? So you have instructions. Then we will be screening. We will do a long list, right? Within the Dean's Fellow program. Then faculty members, I mean your future colleagues slash mentors, will also further shorten the long list. And then if you're shortlisted, right per se, we will invite you to a research presentation. It will be a 1 hour session in which you will present your research during 30 minutes, and then we'll have a 30 minutes of Q&A with your future colleagues slash mentors. After that comes let's say, the administrative part, the academic leaders, right? Because we are a small institution, so we want to know one another. Academic leaders will want to interview you, right? That's what we call the final interview. And at the end of the process, if all goes well, hopefully you will be selected and offered a fellowship. And here I will emphasize that the Dean's Fellowship is very competitive. For example, last year we had 128 applications, and we extended 8 offers, right? So that's like a 6% admission rate, which is so it's let's put it this way: the Dean's Fellow program is as selective as PhD programs, right? So it's a very selective and very competitive opportunity. So you should all do your best, right? You should all put a lot of effort in your application. Yeah, in terms of the timelines, this looks this way, right? You have until the end of the month to prepare your application file. Then, if you're invited to a research talk, you will know in February, March, hopefully. Then the final interviews will be in April, May. You will hear good news, I hope, right? In late May, early June, and then the proper beginning of the fellowship will be late July, right? So typically the last week of July. And yeah, that's what I wanted to emphasize. So you remember that in the application form that you had to submit, right? For the registration form for the webinar, you had the opportunity to ask questions. So I'm going to actually address a few questions that were already asked, and then we'll open the floor for more questions. So yeah, we have does Habib University hire only those who have studied abroad? And the answer is no, right? There is no requirement in terms of the localness or globalness of your degree. And incidentally, yeah, we do have a number of Dean's Fellows across schools who have local bachelor's and master's degrees, right? So especially Sumbul Yusuf in CH and Atika Fatima in ISIM. So what matters is the quality of your application, right? And not necessarily the fanciness of the name of your universities. Then we have a question as, can I continue to keep a research position while teaching at Habib? And here again, the answer is no. So as we emphasized, the Dean's Fellowship is a full-time commitment. So you cannot combine it with any other paid work elsewhere, right? We want your full attention and your full energy. Yes. What's the stipend for the program? How much funding do we get for research, right? Here, we don't actually publicize those numbers because they can change, right? But I guess I can informally break the numbers to you, right? This year, the stipend, which will be revised next year, right? So it will be revised per the inflation next year. This year, the stipend is 250K per month, right? Which is, as I was saying, competitive for the local job market. And yeah, how much funding do you get for your research? The Dean's Fellow Research Grant, so grant for a research project is 7 lakh, right? And the funding for professional development in which we club travel applications to grad schools, offsetting test fees, right? If you want to offset application fees or IELTS TOEFL fees, is 4.5 lakh, right? So this is typically, this is meant so that you don't have to worry about money in terms of conducting your research or applying to programs, right? Actually, over the past year, no Dean's Fellow has availed their entire amount, right? Which is a sign that it's actually enough for what you might need. And yeah, the program's eligibility and the research topic. So as I mentioned, the we should, let's say, practically speaking, we should be able to club you in one of our existing programs, right? So, I mean, it does cast a wide net across disciplines, but for example, yeah, we typically have trouble um, finding a home, right? A home for people with psychology, medicine, management, or finance degrees, right? That's typically the issues that we have. I mean, sometimes we have very good applications, but we're like, we have no idea what courses you will teach and who will be your faculty mentor, right? So that's the very, let's say, practical aspect of the eligibility. And then, yes, same, the research topic can be any topic within disciplines that are covered at Habib, right? So yeah, that's the end of our first part, right? So I'm right on time. This is 30 minutes have passed. And now I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, right? Tac, tac. And we'll be able to move to the Q&A, right?
Colleen, can we start with somebody's question about age? They mentioned, I tried to answer it, but they've said something along the lines of, "Hi there, I'm 35 years old. I've completed my master's degree 10 years ago. First, I want to know whether," so they essentially want to know if they can apply and how competitive they would be as somebody who did their master's 10 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for asking. So the age, let's say, we say young scholar, right? But of course, youth is always a relative concept, right? I think I'm young, right? Although I'm not eligible for the Dean's Fellow program. Anyways, so the age thing. So we have, let's say, we do mention in the application instructions that as you probably have already read, applicants under the age of 28 are preferred, right? So we can actually stop on all parts of that sentence. So emphatically, it's a preference, right? It's not a requirement, which means it doesn't mean that we screen out anyone who is above 28, right? Um, it's a preference, but not a requirement. But it rather means that imagine all credentials being equal, right? Like in terms of seriousness of the profile, motivation to do a PhD, fit into Habib academic and intellectual priorities, right? All of the things being equal, we typically prefer a younger applicant, right? And this is not a question of ageism, right? It's more, it's rather an issue of like being realistic, right? That most PhD programs also don't have strict age requirements, but they also prefer younger applicants. Because yeah, assumingly, the older you are, the lesser your possibility of development as an academic, right? So I mean, yeah, that doesn't prevent older applicants from getting admitted into a PhD, right? Incidentally, right, during my PhD, I had so we were a cohort, we were a batch of 15, right? And one of my batchmates was 50, right? And there was another one who was 40, right? So let's say very original, cutting edge profiles can be admitted even if they're relatively older, right? But yeah, generally speaking, all things being equal, academia prefers younger applicants since a PhD is essentially an apprenticeship, right, to a job which is being an academic, right? So here, yeah, there is always an age preference that applies. And yeah, in terms of actually the number 28 is you would say somehow arbitrary, right? Which which typically means that yeah, we typically still keep applicants who are like 29, 30. But yeah, we want to give a sense that that's experience shows that this is actually a cutoff in terms of PhD programs preferences, right? In the sense that if you're below 28, right, your age is not something that is considered, right? Although if you're above 28, PhD programs might start having questions about whether you're teachable, whether you're really committed to academia, and so on. So yeah, in that sense, let's say if you have completed your master's degrees a while ago, but let's say you went to industry and now you have a very clear plan for being an academic that perhaps yeah that perhaps actually builds on your industry experience, then you're eligible. So I hope that that clarifies the question, right? So this has to be put in the context of PhD programs' typical requirements. Then, yeah, I have a question that is, what are the key characteristics of an effective statement of purpose for the program? Which is yeah, that's a great question. Um, so a statement of purpose for the program should, let's say, should give us a strong sense of your the seriousness, let's say, the seriousness of your commitment to academia and your commitment to place into a PhD program, right? Because let's say let's put it this way: we have information about your academic credentials and your experience in your CV, right? We have information about your research skills in your writing documents, right? In your writing samples. But with the statement of purpose, yeah, we're particularly interested in understanding why do you need the Dean's Fellow program, right? Why yeah, are you really motivated to place into a PhD program, right? Because I mean, I would say from experience, sometimes the weakness of some statement of purpose is we I mean, yeah, we have a sense that the person is a really serious like a professional slash academic slash researcher, right? But we don't have a strong sense of why the Dean's Fellow program, right? So some statement of purpose, yeah, are pretty unspecific in terms of yeah, showing your motivation. So here, yeah, you have to think about purpose in a very literal manner, right? So what is the purpose of you getting into the Dean's Fellow program, right? And yeah, SN, yeah, since you've been applying to a PhD programs this year, can you perhaps give like more fresh experiential insights about what makes for a strong SOP? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think for me, what was important was having a very sound idea of what my research methodology would look like, and also what kind of mentor I would want to work with. So if that maps on well, ideally that's like a solid statement. So yeah, I think I would really recommend that you think about or ideally build on your research interest, which should of course be demonstrated either through your undergrad or your master's degree, and yeah, and find a mentor who is working in a similar area. Identify them in your statement. That would be helpful, actually. So yeah.
Thank you, Essen. Then we have questions that refer to recommendation letters, right? So yeah, especially, does the strength of an application depend on who writes the recommendation letters? Who would be the ideal person to write a recommendation for a successful application? Yeah, this is also a very good question. So we require from 1 to 3 recommendation letters, right? We don't have a fixed number. So I mean, of course, it can't hurt if you have 3 recommendation letters, but let's say your application will be considered complete from the standpoint of the program if there is like 1 or 2 recommenders. And here, I would say it's the same set of like concerns issues as in PhD applications, right? Typically, the let's put it this way: your your recommenders should be your let's say your master thesis advisor, right? Or if you didn't write a thesis, let's say the advisor or the sponsor, mentor of any final year project that you conducted should be among your recommenders, right? Um, so let's say it's not necessarily a thing that your recommenders have to be the people you've interacted with most recently, right? I'm especially thinking of people who might have completed their masters a while ago, right? There is no recency criterion to have necessarily, but yeah, at least your thesis advisor should be able to say good things about your thesis, which is the most sophisticated piece of research you probably completed, right? Because I would say it's if your thesis advisor is not among your recommenders, it's a red flag in the sense that we will start assuming that you had a fight, right? That you had a fight or something. So yeah, your thesis advisor should definitely be in. Other than that, I would say try to prioritize people who've been working with you in a research capacity, right? So people who can speak to your creativity, seriousness, commitment toward research, right? And then let's say you, especially if right now you're working in industry, it's totally welcome that you also have, let's say your work supervisors, right? Especially of your current role, right? Who can, yeah, especially speak about your professionalism, etc., right? So those are the things to keep in mind in terms of recommendation letters. They, let's say, we don't have like strict requirements in terms of who should write, but that's what you should keep in mind. So thesis advisor, definitely, right? Otherwise, we will assume things, right? Then, yeah, preferably people who worked with you in a research capacity, and yeah, work supervisors who can speak to your personality, agreeableness, work ethic are also very welcome.
An example. So I think my recommenders were my undergrad supervisor, my master supervisor, and I had worked for 1 year in Pakistan. So also in a research capacity in the role of a senior research associate. So I got my manager to write for me also. So especially if you've done like work in a research capacity, anywhere at all, you could also get a recommendation from that person. I think for this question, it's not important that person is like famous or important or like well known in
Mhm.
academia. It's just, like they should be able to comment on your ability to do research. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, yes, thanks for emphasizing this. I should have emphasized it. You don't necessarily have, it doesn't necessarily have to be a big shot in academia, right? I mean, let's put it this way. If a big shot in academia writes you a very detailed letter, this is really good, right? So let's say if you had a very good relationship with your supervisor who is also incidentally a big shot, right? This is definitely in your favor. But yeah, as a sensei, hypothetical scenario, you have, let's say, an academic who might not be well known, right? But who is an academic, right, in an academic position, who has worked very closely with you and is able to say specific things, detailed things about your work, versus a big shot that you took a class with at some point in your master's degree, right? You should go for the unknown academic, right? Um, yeah, because and even I mean let's say sometimes we have to be a little bit skeptical. I mean humorous about fame or prestige in academia because you're probably familiar with the meme that says that PhD holders are an expert about an extremely niche aspect of our reality, right? So you would say the same happened for fame in academia, right? Big shots are big shots in a network of 10 people around the world, right? So there is I mean, yeah, there is actually a chance that this famous person might actually not be known by academics at Habib. Not that we are deadwood or bad academics, right? But it might be that the person works on an area that we are not very familiar with. So yeah, that's a very important point. So thanks for emphasizing it. We also have a few questions about research topic, and especially in terms of how should they be a continuation of not from your master's topic. This is also a very good question that I mean, I assume all of you here are interested in PhD programs, right? So I hope, even if God forbids you don't get into the Dean's Fellowship program, this will be a useful session in the sense that we give you advice about PhD admissions as well, right? Hopefully. So in terms of your topic, let's put it this way, your PhD topic doesn't necessarily have to be a continuation of your master's topic, right? Um, because sometimes it happens that, let's say, upon completing your master's thesis, you actually realize that there was one side adjacent aspect of your topic that you find yourself passionate about, right? So sometimes PhD topics derive from you unearthing a very exciting aspect of the field via the digging that you've done in your master's thesis. Whereas, yeah, other PhD projects are, you would say, straight continuations of the master's thesis, right? So, for example, you do your thesis on one context, and then your PhD is a comparison of various contexts, right? That's also pretty common. So here the topic really depends on what you're passionate about. I mean, what you want to pursue, right? Whether it's related to your master's topic or something else. So, so yeah, because yeah, if you think about it, a PhD program requires a lot of effort and intrinsic motivation and energy, right? And also comfort with delayed gratification, right? In the sense that the output of your research, right, will come in years, right? You will spend years in doing your PhD research, which means that you really have to find the topic you're passionate about, right? Otherwise, it won't work. So that's pretty much the only criterion for your research topic. Doesn't have to be related. I mean, will organically probably be related to your master's topic in one way or another because this is how your scholarly development typically looks like. But yeah, the only criterion is that it should be something you're really passionate about, right? We also have questions about let's say what do we mean by terminal degrees in the context of the Dean's Fellow program? I mean, I would say that I should actually mind my language because I typically refer to PhDs, which because yeah, we typically think of terminal degree programs as PhDs, but terminal degrees in arts and design fields are what? MFAs, right? So if you're motivated to pursue an MFA, you're also eligible for the Dean's Fellow program, right? And I would even say I would like this, right? Because we never had a Dean's Fellow who has placed into an MFA, right? So this is something that we're interested in investing into, right? So getting a master's degree holders who are interested in pursuing an MFA. Here, yeah, so you're eligible if your goal is a terminal degree that is other than a PhD, right? A PhD or even hypothetically JDs or MDs, right? Although you might have trouble fitting into Habib, right? But that's theoretically possible. Any terminal degree program or an EDD, right? If you're interested in education topics. But here I would still emphasize that you do need to have, and that also relates to other questions that we've had. You do need to have a master's degrees, right? I know that in American style grad schools and in MFAs, you can apply to PhD with just a bachelor's, right? Here at Habib, for accreditation requirements, right? So which we have no control over, so we can't make any exception. For accreditation reasons, Dean's Fellows should have a master's degree, right? We can't hire Dean's Fellow who have a bachelor's. With that being said, and which means that if you're interested to apply to an MFA, you should have an MA, right? You should already have a master's degree, right? With that being said, and that also refers to a few questions that we've had, you don't necessarily because yeah, some of you are completing their masters this year. Your degree doesn't have to be officially conferred at the time you start the fellowship, right? You should be completed with any physical in-person requirements by the start of the fellowship, right? So we should be able to count on you in fall 2025, right? Your presence is expected because yeah, you are expected to do all the things that you're expected to do. But for example, if let's say yeah, your degree is officially conferred in late August or late September or late October, right? It's okay, right? We accept this. And yeah, incidentally, over the past year, we have always accommodated fellows in that in those type of situations, including and Essen can can tell us about it, including Dean's fellows who, for example, were done with all mandatory in-person requirements with their master's degrees, but who had their defense, right, or their viva while being a Dean's fellow, but they could take it online, right? So yeah, typically you should be able to show up to campus in fall 2025. But let's say if your degree conferral is later for technical reasons, it works for us, right? We then yeah we have a few other questions and yeah I'll try to like club them together to make sure that everybody's concern are being addressed. Um, we we have a question about does Habib University help or provide assistance with relocation to Karachi? And the answer is yes, right? So if you're not of town Dean's Fellow, right? Habib University, let's say if you're single, right? You don't come with a family or with a spouse, right? If you're single, you're eligible for shared housing in Habib University dedicated faculty and fellow housing, right? So yeah, so if you're a single man or a single man, you will be sharing an apartment with other single male Dean's Fellows, and if you're a single female, you will be sharing your apartment with other single female Dean's Fellows, right? If you're relocating to Karachi with a family or with a spouse, right, for financial constraints, right, unfortunately, we are not able to extend housing support to everyone, which is why we prioritize single people because they have typically more difficulties accessing the housing market in Karachi, right, which is hell, right, which is pretty hellish. So if you're let's say our assumption is if we had the capacity, we would love to be able to provide housing to anyone who needs, but we can't, right? So there is this those preferential criteria. But still, yeah, married, let's say married couples and families can be given assistance, especially via we have a dedicated team at Habib that is called Faculty and Fellow Support, right? And those people are typically here to help you with anything, like I emphasize the term anything you might need in your relocation to Karachi, right? So not only they can connect you with a trusted non-sketchy real estate agents, right? But they also can help you with more let's say more like everyday life issues that we face in Karachi, which, as you know, is not a city that is very to navigate, right? If you don't have social capital, right? So we have I mean, it's literally an office that has two staff members in it, and their job, right, 9 to 5, is to help faculty and fellows with life, right, with everyday life. So that is the type of support that we provide. And we also have we also have questions about what and I like that question a lot, and I will have Essen answering it all, right? What does a day-to-day look like for a Dean's Fellow, right? Is it a teaching, I read the question, is it a teaching position similar to a TA, a research position similar to a RA, or something completely different? The floor is yours, Essen.
So no, you will not be a teaching assistant. You will be, teaching your own course. So it might be the case that, you have, so for instance, in my first semester, I was teaching 2 sections of social theory too. So of course, I had a faculty mentor who would, discuss the course content with me. But you won't be like just a T or just a glorified research assistant. You will be managing your own class. You'll be grading them as per your rules, and really like developing your own pedagogical approach to whatever discipline it is that you choose to teach in. So there's that. As far as the day-to-day is concerned, I think it's pretty exciting. You get to teach courses of your choice. You get to attend talks that you're interested in, and Habib is having all sorts of different talks all the time. We have an amazing swimming pool that I go to every day, except of course this winter. And we have a wonderful gym and a wonderful library. So, I try to have a day where, I if I have a morning class and an evening class, I try to get some research done. Then I go to the gym, then I go to the library, attend a talk. So that's what the day looks like. And then I have one day. So Friday is typically reserved for my research only. So I come to campus with the exclusive purpose of working on my manuscript, working on my PhD applications, which for um, this cycle I am done with. So fingers crossed. But yeah, that's effectively what the day looks like. And I think a lot of people have been asking, what's the catch? Is there a bond? There's nothing like that. It is absolutely as good as it sounds. I think by Pakistani standards especially. So there's no bond, there's no catch. It's yeah. If you're somebody who's super passionate about research, we desperately endeavor for you to get here. Yeah. So there's that.
Thank you, Essen. Um, yeah, we also have a few questions about let's say the specifics of the materials that you're expected to provide in your application. The statement of especially yeah, what is the research talk about, right? Yes, actually, when you will be invited to a research talk, which I hope you will, we will actually have a conversation with you on that, right? And I will actually give you individualized advice, right? So typically, because the thing is that we want the research talk to really have you showcase or highlight your best stuff, right? So we want you to be successful. That's the goal. So we will be in touch with you for advice before that. Um, Most applicants, which makes sense, present their master thesis or their master's project, right? And that's totally fits the bill because that does give us a good sense of your research promise and potential, right? With that being said, yeah, I mean, presenting a completed piece of research, let's say an original, personal completed piece of research, which is your master thesis, is the best option. But with that being said, we've had in the past applicants who have presented a proposal, right? Especially applicants who are saying, you know what, I mean, I am actually applying to PhDs even this year, right? And I actually, let's say, made up a proposal that what I want to do in my PhD that builds on my master's research, right? And I will actually want to present on this to also yeah, convey research promise and potential. And this is also something that we have welcomed and that has proven effective in many instances. So that's the thing. So you will be guided, right? You'll have 30 minutes, and let's say the only instruction is the research talk should give evidence of your research promise and potential, right? As it stands, the best evidence you can provide of your research promise and potential is your master thesis, right? So that can be it. And actually, yeah, some applicants later actually let's say emailed us and told us, oh, actually that was great because I will need to defend my master thesis no matter what. So that was actually a good way to get feedback, right? And I'm like, I love this, right? Let the exercise actually be useful as much as possible. So yeah, so actually try to take it as I mean also to reduce the stress if you might feel some, right? Try to take it as an opportunity to share your best stuff with potential colleagues and let's say actually like-minded people and get feedback, right? And and actually the research talk itself, I mean, yeah, most of the time, let's say people who attend your research talk are actually interested in what you have to say, right? So most of the time you do get, like the Q&A session is actually pretty pleasant, right? In the sense that people actually engage with your stuff and give you questions and feedback. Um, then, yes, we also have yet two questions about the application documents. We have questions about the length of the SOP. Here, I mean, a lot of things in academia are not strictly defined, but they are like conventions, right? The same applies for the SOP. Typically, 2 to 3 pages does the trick, right? 2 to 3 pages. Um, if yeah, that is enough to convey your motivation and in a way that is substantial enough, but that doesn't like go overboard. So again, it's not a strict requirement, but that's the conventional length for this genre of writing. We also have questions about the writing sample, like which type of, yeah, much like we had questions about the letters of recommendation, similarly, uh, which, uh, which writing samples are needed. Here, always the same. Anything that can show your research promise and potential, right? I mean, actually gauging your motivation to pursue a PhD is what the statement of purpose achieves, right? This is why we ask for one, right? I mean, yeah, we don't ask you to submit application documents that we don't need, right? We need everything, right? And the SOP tells us how motivated you are, and the writing sample should give us indication enough so that we can actually shortlist you, right? Give us indication about your writing and research skills. So yeah, typically your master thesis if you have one. If you don't have a master thesis, that doesn't necessarily put you at a disadvantage, but you can typically submit, let's say, papers that you have submitted in your coursework, right? Or any projects that you worked on and that have some writing attached to it. Then, and I think I will actually have covered most of the questions, and again on time, so everything is coming along nicely. Um, Lastly, we have we have two other groups of questions. There is a questions about language. Um, uh, so Habib University is an English medium institution, right? So your courses will be taught in English. Other than that, much like the United States, Habib doesn't have an official language, right? So which means let's say you can, I mean, especially, I mean, as I said, we value contextually relevant research, right? So yeah, if you're doing research in issues of language in Pakistan and you publish in regional languages, we actually value that, right? Um, You'll be expected to teach your courses in English still, right? But other than that, the rest of your day-to-day life, as SN was mentioning, right? The rest of your day-to-day life on campus can happen in other languages. And incidentally, Habib is like Karachi, is a multilingual campus, right? We actually had a colleague, Xiaoxi Zhang, over the summer doing a survey on languages at Habib, and she actually found out that Habib is pretty representative of the linguistic diversity of Karachi, right? So hopefully, if your project involves local languages, you will be very much welcomed, right? And lastly, I have a few questions about people. Yeah, as I was saying, we assume that most Dean's Fellow come without teaching experience, and we will be providing you with onboarding to smoothen out your transition into college teaching. So yeah, teaching experience is not required for this role. On the other hand, some of you mentioned that they are already educators, right? Some of you mentioned that they are lecturers at other universities in Pakistan, or that they are teachers in primary or secondary education. Definitely, it won't hurt, right? It won't hurt your application to tell us that you already have teaching experience, but it will not necessarily give you an edge in the application process, which is also true for PhD admissions in a way that is very ironic, right? Teaching experience in itself, right? I emphasize this. Teaching experience in itself is not a requirement or even something that PhD programs look for. What we look for is a scholarly promise. With that being said, as we were saying, and that's something that we adhere to at Habib, teaching is the best form of getting on top of your scholarly interest, right? So my advice to you, if you do have teaching experience, would be to, for example, emphasize in your SOP, right? Emphasize in your SOP how has your experiences as an educator help you uncover aspects about your scholarly interest, right? And how do you envision, what have you learned by teaching that now puts you in the position into wanting to explore a topic in great depth, which will be the point of your PhD?
Yeah, I just wanted to add here, colleague. So for people who are nervous about teaching, which I was because I had really never taught before, we quite literally have an entire center called the Center of Pedagogical Excellence, and their entire job is to help you become a better teacher. And yeah, as Colleen said, especially if you're somebody who wants to pursue like a DPhil or a PhD in education, I think it makes sense for you to be an educator, like especially if your work draws on like
Mhm.
educational inequalities or some sort of ethnography of education or public versus private schooling areas relating to education. You can absolutely leverage that to talk about research. But yeah, I think as a Dean's Fellow, and this is, I think, important, you're, if I were to kind of put it into a pyramid, and Colleen, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would be research, teaching, and then community engagement. Those would be the pillars that you're
Mhm.
kind of involved in that order, respectively.
Yet this is a very accurate pyramid, right? And this is exactly that, right? Um, yeah, research goes on top. Teaching should feed into and nurture your research, right? And community engagement is the community you need to able to develop yourself as a researcher and as a teacher, ergo as a scholar, right? Because yeah, much like a PhD is about development, I mean, literally speaking, right? A PhD is here for your scholarly development, and the same approach apply to the Dean's Fellows, right? Yeah, we let's say our our goal at Habib is to with the Dean's Fellow program is to uh, yeah get on board young, promising, solid scholars and give them all the opportunities, all the resources, all the context they need to develop themselves and place into a PhD program. So this is our goal, our mission on our end, right? And yeah, with that being said, I think we're on time. I think we have covered all the queries that were addressed in the chat, right? If you have further queries, right? If you have further queries, as Essen was also mentioning at the beginning, you're free to email the program address, right? So which should show up on your screen, right? So the deans.fellowship at Habib EduIPK, and we'll be very welcome to answer your queries. Other than that, yes, good luck everyone with your application, right? We look forward to reviewing them and. Yeah, best of luck and good night or good evening or good morning.